Okay, day 333, part 3. Um, I'm just trying to warn Laurel. I think that she is maybe the victim of what could be called, well, for lack of a better word, deathbed loans. The deathbed loan scheme is an old scam that's run. A lot of the scams are run around people right before they die. And what you do is basically people start making, as older folks' health starts going downhill, usually the other person who's the spouse goes to a funeral home and starts making arrangements for their funeral, especially if it's a long, slow death. And it's usually the woman, because the woman usually outlives the man and whatnot. But the scam is that sometimes the funeral directors, and I'm just saying sometimes, so happens like 1 in a million, right? But what they do is once they get the knowledge that this person's dying, if they know someone or can get a hold of a database which has Social Security number information in it, and it's an institution that makes loans, what they'll do sometimes is they'll work a scam with a credit union. Usually it's done Army, Navy, big credit unions like the Pentagon credit union or the Army Navy credit union or some type of Congressional credit union, that type of thing. What happens is, in the scam is you get in you bring, typically what you do is you bring a renter in to a house. And that renter is, let's say, an administrator for all of the Navy for their medical, which is something that the Awans had. Or you bring in somebody who's the administrator for all of the military personnel in the United States, and they're, let's say, a TRICARE administrator. That's another thing that the Awans had. Or you bring in one of their houses. Or you bring in somebody who has, anyway, you bring the target in first. Then once you look at their password and get into their database and get all the names and pull all the names off a spreadsheet, you kick them out of the house. This is what I think happened to Laurel. The other thing is that Laurel was involved in credit, and I don't know if she loaned money in her daily business, but you can also get into those people's systems and create fake loans. So if they got into her credit system, they could create fake loans for cars. Usually it's for cars. It's usually on these deathbed loans, it's a $10,000 car or less. Not usually, sometimes $3,000 to $10,000. Anyway, the person then dies, but this fraudster gets the money, not very much money, let's say $10,000 or $20,000 for the car. After the person dies, the loan is not being serviced anymore, so it starts accumulating charges. It starts accumulating service charges, and it starts accumulating interest and so forth. And this typically goes on for about 6 months. Then what you do is you bring somebody in, and so you would kick out the person. You've already got their data and information. You kick that person out of your house. Now you're going to bring a programmer in to now start sending out what they call green mail. And you start sending out emails to these widows. And it goes something like this. Hey, this is National Collection Credit Consumer Organization, whatever. This is where they could have used Laurel's, identity even. They could have pretended that they were her, that Imran could have pretended that he was Laurel. He's pretended to be women before on credit loan applications before. We know that directly from the FBI report. And, your husband owed $8,000, before he died. He bought a car, and the widow immediately goes, "What are you talking about? You're crazy." And then they say, well, I called the dealer, and they said they were going to make a surprise gift. He wanted to do this for his grandson. He wanted to get him a Toyota, 93 Toyota or whatever. And there was one of his kind of last wishes is what the car dealer is saying. But the car dealer is no longer in business. It's CIA car dealer, so you're going to have to pay it. The car's been towed. It's gone. Now, Imran has an import business, AB Auto Imports, auto and import in Florida. And that's at one end of the auto train, and he lives at the other end of the auto train in Lorton. So, I mean, these are all things that and he has another business called M&I Auto that also goes out of business. that declares bankruptcy. So I'm not stating things that aren't fact that have been reported widely in the press. So I'm just saying Laurel would be a natural target. She was involved in credit. I think she was at NCC Credit for like a long time, 16, 17 years. And she also was involved in this review of these equal opportunity, which is a way of, if Imran did impersonate an equal opportunity person, you can threaten a loan officer to give a loan. Otherwise, they'll open an EEO. So all the things that Laurel had would have been a perfect complement to his car businesses. So that's what I'm trying to say. And a lot of times in these situations, the people just can't believe that they're a target. They just can't believe their identity is being used. You might be able to go out in national consumer credit or whatever Laurel's company was, and find that they made a whole bunch of loans to the Pentagon credit union, and Laurel has no idea of it. I went on the site, I found all these people saying, hey, I got all these bills after my so-and-so died. What's going on here? So I'm not saying something that isn't directly supported by evidence. So she, I believe, is targeted. And I wonder about the funeral director, Freitag, with the two different names. I saw the two different obituaries. There's the John, I think it's John Taylor Everly, and then it's also John something Freitag. And it's exactly the same description, Mason, funeral home, etc., same kids, same everything. Now, they do make the mistake and list Laurel, I think, as a kid, and that's where I got thrown off initially when I was asking if Laurel was the daughter of this John Freitag or not. That's what threw me off originally, because both of these obituaries said that she was the daughter. So that's where I got thrown a little bit early, but still, it's not a good thing. When I start seeing two different names with the same obituary, I start thinking that's a second fake kind of identity. And again, it's that Everly name again, and it's the Freitag name again, and I start thinking, man, Laurel is really getting targeted heavy here. So again, if it wasn't for Imran Awan and all of his crazy stuff in the credit, I don't know, I wouldn't be bringing this forward.